Today we're going to talk about some camera moves that you can do with your gimbal to help tell your story better and make your videos more cinematic. I'm going to start with the basics and move to the more advanced moves, and I'm going to tell you why and when to use each one of these moves. So first up is the pan. A pan is just simply moving the camera left to right or right to left, and this is a move that's usually done with a tripod, but you can easily do this with a gimbal as well. You can use pans when you want to follow the action in a shot or when you want to reveal more in the scene. Next up we have the dialing in and dialing out. When you dial it in or dial it out to something, you're bringing more emphasis or taking emphasis away from the main subject. So if you start off away from a subject and you move into them, then you're bringing more importance to what you're pushing in on. And on the flip side, when you pull away from a subject, you're making them seem smaller or more insignificant to whatever it is that's going on, or you're revealing more of the background to reveal more of the story around them. With the dolly shot, it's usually the camera that's doing all of the movement and the subject is usually stationary. Now as we move to a tracking shot, we place the camera in front of or behind the subject and we're following them into the action. So if you're tracking behind somebody and they're moving forward, then you're pretty much following them into the journey that they're about to take ahead of them. Also, depending on the angle that you track them at, if you track them up high, then you can make them feel smaller and more weak. Or if you track them down low, they'll look larger in the frame and more powerful. Now when you flip the camera around and track them from in front, that's a good way to show their emotion, or if there's a conversation going on between two people, that gives the viewer a better look at what they're saying and how they're feeling without really knowing where they're headed to. Now another type of tracking shot is the trucking shot. That's when you follow a subject from the side profile and it reveals a lot of the environment and what they're actually walking through. Now you can do a close-up of the trucking shot and get more of the emotion from the subject while still showing them moving forward towards the destination. Now dialing shots and tracking shots can be used at a very low angle when you want to conceal what exactly is going on in the scene, but you still want to show that there's some kind of movement going on. So you can track behind a person's feet so you know that they're moving forward, but you don't really know what they're moving forward into. This is a good way to keep things hidden but still show the audience that there's movement going on. Next up are the reveal shots. Reveal shots hide the real subject of the shot and it gives a little tension in the build up before you show what the actual subject is. So instead of just showing a shot of a beautiful landscape, you could lead up to that shot by showing the sky or the ground before you actually show what you intend to show during the reveal. But when you do a reveal shot to bring more attention to whatever it is that you're about to show, reward the viewer by actually showing them something that was worth doing that for. And remember that a reveal shot doesn't have to be a tilt up or a tilt down. It can be a combination of any of the other moves that I've just talked about, as long as you're using the camera movement to reveal something in the shot. Next up is an arcing shot, and that's when you take the camera and you move in a half circle around the subject. This makes the subject stand out more because the background is going to be zooming by and the subject is going to remain in the middle and in focus. This is a good way to show off the features of a subject. So like if you have an action hero who's about to go into battle, you can arc around them and show off all of the gear and guns and whatever they might have on them to go into the battle with. Or you can use a shot like this to signify the change in the situation. So like if the tides in the battle have turned from good to bad, then you can arc around the subject and to show the flip in power. However you use the arcing shot, just make sure you try to keep the subject in the center to get the maximum effect. Now to build on the arcing shot, we have the orbit shot. The main difference is that instead of stopping halfway through the arc, you continue to go 360 degrees around the subject. You definitely want to make sure you don't have any lights or camera stands or extras around that might get into the shot when you do a 360 orbit, because the purpose of the shot is to show off the environment that the subject is in. Since the shot does show all of the environment, you want to make sure there's a good reason for you to do this. So for example, if your subject just did a long climb to the top of a mountain and you want to show off the landscape around him once he gets to the top, then this is a good way to do it. Anytime your subject is completely surrounded by a very interesting environment, this might be a good shot to do. Now as we combine some of these moves, we can do things like the front to back transition, where we track a subject from in front and transition to tracking them from behind. A good way that I think you can use this shot is if you have two subjects walking and talking and they're about to head into like a building or something like that, and you're tracking from in front so you can hear the conversation, but before they walk into the building, you rotate to track behind them to actually see them going into the building. So that way you're providing the audience with a good shot of everything that's going on, and you're still moving the story forward by giving them the conversation and showing what's the next action that's about to happen. Now the next two moves you probably won't use that much, and the first one is the 360 roll. This is when you point the gimbal at the subject and you rotate the gimbal 360 degrees around so it looks like the world is flipped upside down. Now this shot was used on the movie Inception, but if you know anything about the movie Inception, it makes perfect sense. So I can understand why it was used in that movie, but this might be a cool effect for something like a music video or something like that. But if you want to make it look like the world flipped upside down, or it looks cool to you for some kind of effect that you're doing, then the 360 roll would definitely get that done. And last up is the dolly zoom. The dolly zoom is very hard to do, and that's why I saved it for last on the list, because it's very impractical to do on the gimbal, and there are easier ways to do this without having to worry about everything that I'm about to tell you. Basically what you have to do is dolly towards a subject while you're zooming out on the lens, or dolly back from a subject while you're zooming in on the lens. And the whole goal is to try to keep the subject the exact same size in the frame the whole time. So you have to match you moving forward or back with the speed that you're zooming in or zooming out. The only reason why I was able to attempt this shot is because on this camera I have a power zoom lens. So I can rotate the dial on the side of the gimbal to zoom in and zoom out with this lens while I'm using it. So basically I just matched my speed with the speed of the dial on the side and got the shot. If this wasn't a power zoom lens, I would have to try to zoom in with the wheel on the lens while I'm using the gimbal, while I'm moving forward or backwards and trying to keep the subject in frame at the same speed. And that's pretty much almost impossible to do. So the only reason why I had the slightest chance of getting it done was because of the setup that I have. But like I said, there are much easier ways to get this done. I do it all the time with like drone shots and stuff like that. But I just threw that one in for good measure. Also, it would probably look a whole lot better if it was in slow motion. I hope you can work these moves into your own work, and know that you don't need a gimbal to do these moves. All of these moves were around way before we all started having gimbals. So just remember to make sure you put the story first and you apply the type of shots to tell that story. The story comes first, the shots and technology and tools come after. I hope this video was helpful. Please give me a thumbs up, subscribe, follow me on Instagram, and I will see you guys next time.